Hello and welcome all to today's special episode on Women's Day special. I have few very inspiring women from the data community that I know, and I welcome Magdy, Donnabill, Zaina and Kimberly for today's session.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Manpreet, for
Hi.
giving us the chance to talk on today's show.
Yes, thank you
It's
so
really
much.
honor.
You're welcome. We have a lot of people who have joined us from LinkedIn and YouTube.
That's amazing.
So before we move ahead, I would like you all to introduce yourself to the audience.
We start
Go
with
ahead with
me.
Magdy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing me for kickoff this introduction. So hi everyone. I'm Magdy. I'm originally from Hungary, but I lived for quite some time in Germany, and I'm very glad to be part of this group with these amazing ladies. Although I feel a little bit like a cuckoo in the nest because I'm not 100% tech person. I'm just started my past regarding this. So I'm really enthusiastic about data science actually. And that's why I landed here in this community with the other ladies. And originally I'm coming from a finance background and I'm still working in this field in the media sector, dealing with the film revenues and film rights. And I would just like to combine these two knowledge, what I did for the last 20 years and what I learned recently in the last 1 or 2 years. And that's why I'm here. I'm glad that Manpreet gathered us to share our experiences and our thoughts about certain things, probably about how we are thinking about women and our role in that industry, for example.
Yeah, Donnabill, you go next.
Thank you for that. It's going to be so hard to follow that. This is totally unscripted. So hello, my name is Donnabill, and I just feel very honored to be here. Thank you, Manpreet, for organizing it, and I'm looking forward to learning from everybody here as well. I work in the data space, probably more on the data engineering side. Yeah, I really suck at introductions, so I'm gonna pass it over to Kim. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. So I'm a little like Magdy. I come from a different background, and I'm moving into data science space. And my background is kind of all over the place. So I started in finance, and then I went into consulting and strategic research. And I worked with technology and financial companies doing the strategic research. And one of the things that I found, then I went and did my own business with my husband, restoring vintage posters like this one behind me. And we've been running that business, and I've been raising my family. And now I see all these exciting things happening in the space that I used to be in, like really exciting things. And when you suddenly see something that is so exciting for something that you're passionate about, you can't help but get back into it. You're just like, wait a minute, well, machine learning, NPL, wait, this is really exciting, because it really is. It's really, really exciting, all that can be done with the tools that are coming out and with the technology that's coming out. I mean, I'm coming from a space where literally teams of people used to put together all of the data, crunch the data in Excel, put it into PowerPoint, do presentations, spend hours upon hours building out those models and trying to figure out what the story was. And the tools that are available now are so facile. And that creates an opportunity, but also something that people have to be very wary of, because it looks so easy, but it doesn't change any of the fundamentals. You still have to think very carefully about what you're analyzing, how you're weighing those parameters, and what's going into your analysis. Defining the problem, I think, is the biggest issue. And so it's an extremely exciting time to come back into this. And I love learning, and I love learning about new things and meeting new people. And I feel like now, especially, there's an opportunity for women to really shine and in their intellect. You know, this wasn't always the case. I know it's really hard for younger people to understand, but actually women had to fight pretty hard to gain their own turf and to be able to speak and have the floor. And the fact that that there are so many young women who are so bright and coming into this space is so exciting, you know. And I don't know if anybody knows, but we're all part of this MLIA community. And Tom Ives and Gaith, what's Gaith? How do I say his last name? I don't want to mess it up. Thank you. Sorry, but they started this fantastic community about growing together. And I honestly that if there's any kind of revolution that's taking place, this is it. The idea that you're not competing against everyone else in your industry, you're actually all growing together. And if data scientists can all get together and do this, really do it, really learn from each other and share, the world is going to improve so much because we're going to be guided by data as opposed to opinion, as opposed to politics, as opposed to any of these other things. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much, Manpreet, for inviting me.
Yeah, Zaina, your turn.
I was going to make the joke, ladies first, and after that I was like, okay, are all ladies? So, hi everyone, my name is Zaina. I am originally from Tunisia, and now I'm working as a data scientist in France in a company called Provision.io. And I'm just passionate of gathering with others, having that are different from me and exchange opinions, etc. I think today I won't talk that much about my passion to data science, but I think that today I'm going to take the opportunity to express myself as a woman and as a world citizen about women's rights and what would be the challenges what are the challenges that we are still facing and we're not seeing, and even from a data scientist point of view. So yeah, it's going to be magnificent. I'm so happy to see you all ladies, and so happy for people that are watching us. So yeah, thank you, Manpreet. That's a very good initiative.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. So, moving ahead, this is the first question for you for the day. What does it feel to be a woman? What are the challenges that you feel you faced? And how do you see the difference of era from like the youth three of us, Magdy, Donnabelle, and Kim? How less challenges do we have, or how has the time changed from your time back then?
I feel like that's question to the oldest first.
It's okay.
Don't worry. I think we are quite close. Kim, don't worry. To the 20 plus experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'll let you take it, Magdy, first.
So I should go, or you should go. So who's first? Okay.
Okay, I can take it.
Well,
let's go
yeah,
for
then
it.
let's start from the youngest. Let's see.
Yeah, let's take the challenge. In fact, for me, I grew up in a family of two professors, and I had the chance that I didn't face that kind of problems where I'm seeing being a woman as a difference, you know. I'm seeing it as a blessing to be a woman. But after that, once I got to school, I just noticed that being a woman was seen as a difference. And I heard a lot during my studies, wow, you sound like those kind of sentences. For a woman, you are very good at maths. and after that, when I traveled, for a North African woman, you feel confident and independent, and I like this. And during the last conference that I assisted, I even received a message on LinkedIn telling me, I'm so surprised to see Arab women so proud and so going so like courageous to go on public and talk and express themselves like freely and in a huge confidence. And also, let's not talk about those kind of all the we are not taken seriously either on LinkedIn while people approaching us or at work. So during all these experiments, this is the kind of things that I experimented. And also during like once I was even talking to a friend, and I told him I negotiated my salary and I asked for this, and he was telling me that was so confident from a woman to ask for such salary even though you just got your diploma. So we get those kind of remarks, and I think like women got through a lot of steps, you know. Still we got into a better world when we compare each other ourselves um, to women back in time, like in 80s and before even. But but but
Thank
but
you.
but still, and even I got to a certain point where I was saying, wow, I think it's like we are creating a problem that is not existing. And I think that those kind of discrimination and those kind of talking about women freedom is just a problem from the past. And I was shocked when I was reading on ethics that we're still seeing gender bias. And I was like, okay, I like mathematics. Is mathematics discriminatory? And I was like, no, those are only mathematics formulas. So from where is this gender bias coming? And simply it's from data. And I watched the data. I was telling myself, okay, maybe this data was created a long time ago. No, it's data sets that were created 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And so this problem is still existing. How would I handle it as a data scientist? Maybe by augmenting data, maybe by trying to talk about it, like today's show. And yeah, this is how I'm seeing things. Still, the world is progressing, but still, we're having a lot of challenges that we are overlooking by time, taking the excuse as I took it. It's just an evidence. And these gender biases that I found in my work encouraged me to read more about it. And I just saw it starting from the lows. We still having, there are still a lot of countries where we still don't have, women don't have the right for, like women and men don't have the right for parental leave. We're still seeing this in words, like associating, like we're still associating women to certain tasks and men to certain tasks. We're still seeing it even, and we discovered this with natural language processing when we saw how there are a lot of biases in the language, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and also, so the problem is still here, and I want just really to insist, a lot of people were sending me today Happy Women's Day, and they will be shocked when they will watch this, but I don't like this because we say Happy Women's Rights Day, and it's not a day to tell women that, whoa, Happy Women Day. It's a day where we contribute, where we take a time of reflection, small time of reflection, telling how would I contribute to this process, what are the existing challenges, how women all over the world are suffering, and not just us limit ourselves to where we are living or the conditions we're living right now. So it's like it's a day where we should take women and men, like my dad was always saying, women's problems are men's issues. And
You have
let's
a
be
great
more
nose for wise
general,
words.
are a human's issues. So it's a human issues. So let's tell this. So it's not only concentrate ourselves or on women in our home countries, also on women all over the world, and try to raise consciousness about this and how would we contribute to make things better. So yeah, this is my point of view, how I'm seeing things. Sorry if I just talk too much.
Yeah,
Go for it.
like adding to your point, if you see Siri, Alexa, Sophia are all women that they justify as a woman's voice attracts more customers to them. That is what
Yeah,
their justification is to building Siri and Alexa as a woman's voice, because a woman's voice attracts more and it's more pleasing to listen to. So if you see, the biases exist everywhere, but I read this article
yeah,
and it quite relates to it, that the human robots, the voice are all mostly female voices that they objectify sometimes to us. So yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. Anyone can take from here.
Yeah, and even for positive discrimination, now some before we were used as tools to make publicity for some cooking machines, for food, for laundry things, but now it's only the image that is different, where some companies would come and tell, whoa, we value women, and just to balance a certain percentage without giving to women like high positions, or where they would make decisions. They would just include them in some tasks, or no risks projects. And let's assume this, even big companies like Fnac companies, and I'm not afraid to tell it, there were a lot of people that would talk about this and would tell women are generally affected, like they are generally given the tasks that, or the projects that are low risk projects or research projects, because they are less passionate, more passionate than men, and just the image is different. We are like hiding this, this is what I think also. Sorry.
Well, I think you raise an interesting point, because in my mind, there's a number of systemic issues that you touched upon that really are still in place in a majority of the world. Different countries have different times that they give women to take off to have children. And in some cases, it's literally as low as 3 weeks. Now, for anyone who's had children, you know that that's impossibly difficult. It is impossibly difficult. Your whole body hasn't even recovered from giving birth yet. And in other countries, you have a certain amount. Like when I left to have my children, I had 6 weeks, and then that was all I was going to be paid for. And so then it becomes an economic issue. And when my first child was born, she was colicky. So I didn't sleep for those 6 weeks, and there's all of these assumptions that, and all of these things that are handed to women, and not to families, but to women, as this is your problem and you have to deal with it. And when I think about the world, and, the fact that I think it's great, that you think that like there's no bias there, there's no discrimination, but I think there's huge discrimination systemically. And I think it's changing. I think that women are becoming more empowered to speak up for themselves. But I don't think that it has changed systematically across the world the way that it needs to, for people to really be able to be on an equal footing. You can't give a little girl an education and then take everything away from her the second she brings more people into the world. It's just not right. The society needs to find more creative ways to work with women. And, I lived in Germany for a while, and Germany is great. I love how they help families. They give women up to 3 years, and you have a guaranteed return to work afterwards. So you can give up 3 years, which is fundamental for that child's life to start. And you can switch it off with your husband. Your husband can take time off as well. And then the businesses in Germany have kindergartens inside the businesses. You know, it would be amazing if they did that in America. It would change everything. And they don't. So, and I'm in New York City, which is, you know, for most parts, many women work here. It's not, you don't have the bias or the difficulty in getting a job that you might have in a much more rural setting. So it's really, I really feel that governments and countries and businesses need to do a lot more to make things easier for women, because they're getting a brain drain themselves. You know, they're losing women who might not come back to the workforce. And they're literally looking at women like, oh, you're young, you haven't had children yet. Don't know if I want to hire you. That's not the right kind of thinking. You know, they really need to be looking at who's coming in and looking at the life cycle of their employees. There was this great book that came out called Late Bloomers that's recent, that talks about how society needs to look at people who are being employed more of an arc instead of a line where they just increase, and then drop off. You know, there's a lot of issues about, well, when somebody's earning a certain amount of money, they get to a peak, and it really isn't sustainable to keep paying them at a higher level. So don't. Be creative. You know, businesses can be much more creative than they're being. And they can work with the people that work with them. And, you know, when I was growing up, people used to work for the same company their entire lives, you know, and this is gone. And there's benefits to that, because people realize that it's about the skill sets and you move on. But there's also these failings from that, because you can't really be part of a dream. You can't share a dream the way that you used to be able to in helping a company. And I think that's a huge loss for companies.
I don't know if you read it, Raif's comment. He said, I think the idea of Women's Day is example about gender bias, even if it is positive bias, but it's still bias, are not it. Well,
Is it not? Yeah.
I think it's not a bias. I think if women were treated, it's Women's Rights Day. If Women's Rights Day were taken as an evidence since the beginning, we won't have that kind of day. Let's back in history. This day corresponds to days where women gathered to ask for their rights, you know, because they didn't have those rights. And that's why we are celebrating it today. So if you if men would have some issues, I think it's human beings issues. So if men would have issues about their rights or anything, I think we would not hesitate to ask for their rights as well, you know. And also, as I told, and want to remind that women not having their rights is not only the problem of women, it's also the problem of a man, because it's an issue. There is a certain human being suffering just because he has some different morphological difference, you know. So, Raif, I didn't like the question, but hopefully maybe it's an evidence for you that women are living good and they don't have any problems. But thank you anyway for your question.
But I think we should a little bit get rid of this kind of gender discussion. Honestly, I don't like to defend my gender. I mean, yeah, I'm a woman. I'm a very proud woman. I'm happy that I'm a woman. I love it because that made me strong. I mean, I had to work twice as much as a man. This is fact. And I think most of us can say that. And this is despite the fact that we can say that 50% of the population is men and women in the world, but somehow we got a little bit neglected. And I'm told, I mean, I cannot complain because I'm in Europe, and I know that there are much worse cases in other countries regarding women's rights. But I would like to put it on a different track, because we are talking about diversity and we are talking about equality. That we, regardless of gender, we should get the same opportunities. If I apply for a job as a data scientist, I don't want to seen as a woman. I don't want to be in a quota for a company or a country that, yeah, we want to have more females on our side. No, I want to get a job because I have my skills, because I'm bringing my experience, because I impress them. It doesn't matter. It can be another candidate, a man who is also good as me. I don't care. Just treat the people as human, as Zina also said, that I was born as a girl, but I was not brought up as a girl. I was brought up as a human being. And I'm really thankful for my parents that they didn't say that, yeah, you are a girl, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot study whatever you want because that is for the boys. No, you can choose. And just back to the original question, how things changed. And I'm coming from Generation X. So, Zina, there are women before 80s as well. So, my experience, because I'm the example. So, and the difference, and honestly, I cannot say anything bad about it. I mean, yeah, there are changes, but what I see as a change, a very positive change, that more and more brilliant and smart girls stand up, and they have the attitude and the braveness and being bold sometimes in the discussion, even in the salary discussion, or getting a job, or getting a place at the university, or choose a track at the university. They are brave enough to say that it doesn't matter what my gender is. I'm a human being, and this is my passion. This is my aspiration. I want to do this, and full stop. That's it. And the other thing, what I see, that more and more people realize this. And I have to also say that there are a lot of men who are supporting women in that case. But the main thing is, and this is the key, that everyone, including 5 of us, we play a big role to be kind of a role model and inspire people, inspire and empower, and also motivate and empower women. And say that, yeah, you can do it, especially young ones, because you can do whatever you want. Don't stick to your gender. I mean, it is just ridiculous if somebody is seeing you only as a woman or a man. It goes, this discussion goes nowhere. And I'm aware that there are unconscious bias, and we have to fight. And this is the challenge what I face, that it is still there. And this is mainly because and obviously we have also some kind of responsibility in that one, because you have to stand up and you have to be visible, because if you are not heard and you are not seen and you are not visible, you are not considered. And this is the point what I feel, that in a company or at a university, if you do not articulate your voice and get there and put yourself there in the situation, then nobody will recognize you. So it is
Maggie, I think that raises a very interesting idea, because in a sense it sounds like what you're saying is that for women to be heard, they have to act like men, they have to be aggressive, they have to speak out, they have to make themselves known. But there's many ways to make yourself known without saying, hey, pay attention to me. You know, you can show yourself through your work. You can show yourself through what you promote in your work and in your life. I don't think that it's funny, because in a way, Gaith is right. There is bias, both positive and negative. But we don't want to take being a girl away from girls. I love that girls are more gentle, that they're more compassionate, that they're more quiet, that they're less aggressive. I love this, because this is what balances the world. And there are guys who are less aggressive. But my point is that, you know, the things that are assigned to bias in terms of gender, we have to change the definitions of those biases. I think that there's 2 sides to it. We all agree that on a mental level, men and women think differently, but they come up with the same results. They our brains work differently, but that doesn't mean that they work any less well. So I think that people really need to appreciate the uniqueness of each and every individual, male or female. and not look at any one person as you are a girl, you are a boy. I have teenagers, and they're amazing because they're social justice warriors, and they really understand the bias of language in and of itself. I never heard of non-binary before having children, and I think it's fantastic. Like, why do you have to associate with one or the other? Why can you not be a force that's quiet? You know what I mean? It's just, I feel that a lot of young people say, well, you just have to fight, act like a guy, and you have to do this.
No.
And I learned, but in a way I did have to do that. For me, for my generation, which is also Generation X, I was in finance. You had to act like a guy and stand up and speak your voice and be aggressive. They have this cheer in America that goes, be aggressive, be aggressive. And this is what they say to girls on teams, because this is the way that they think is how you get heard.
No, I didn't mean that at all, and I don't like that way. I mean, when I say that make yourself visible, it means that you bring your personality to the light. I mean, that people are considering you, they see you, you are not overlooked. This is the only thing. So you bring everything what you have, your voice, your personality. I don't like this. I know what you mean, but I don't like that I don't want to fight as a man. Why should I? That is not me. Exactly. This is pretending. This is adopting to the so-called entrenched male culture. No, I don't want to be there. I mean, this is the boy games, and I have my own games. I play in a company, for example, and from my experience, I can say I really work always in a company where management was always male. I mean, the second level, you could reach. This is, that is also an unconscious bias, because there are the invisible ceiling in all terms. There is there. So that is a challenge, I think, still. And I could act as a woman. I mean, I brought my emotional intelligence with it. And I just very kindly ask certain things. I just questioned, because they had processes, they had their mentality, how they made decision. And suddenly I came and I said, I put them in a situation where they had to think about that. Okay, there is a different perspective, which is not this male culture perspective, for example. And a lot of times, you have to talk about these things, because you have to make the other side also aware that they have assumptions and they have perceptions about us. So if I'm a mom, I'm not asked, okay, do you have, do you want to have a higher position, for example, or promotion, or as you said, that if you are a young girl and they said, okay, you are very close to the age that you get pregnant, that they may not consider even to take you on board, because they have these assumptions. And this is the unconscious bias, what I mean, that you don't even get the chance, or you don't even get the question that, do you want to be involved? And this is what you said at the beginning, Kim, that this is a systematic problem, because people, first of all, people who are working in a leadership or in a management level, and then the companies, then the society, then the countries, they have to think flexible. They have to adopt that, there are moms, but that means that, for example, a dad cannot go on parental leave. So it is also about equal chances. And if they change this mentality and they think that, okay, a woman can also work in a leading position, but we have to make possible to work in a flexible way, flexible working hours from home. So it is everything is mindset for me. It is flexibility and adaptability, that how can you equally give chance to women and men, without losing on families, for example, and without sacrificing the woman, because they are choosing for the childhood. And I'm not complaining, because I also stayed 3 years at home, so it was nice, but it was me. It was my decision. Maybe someone who had the chance for 3 years say that, okay, I want to stay at home for 1 year and go back. And this is flexibility, because you cannot have just plan A. You have to have more scenarios for women to integrate them and to have them and not lose on them.
But I worry, Magda, about how they're defining those opportunities. Because, for example, many people will say flex work when it's not flex work. You're taking just as much work home, and now you have kids at home with you. And a lot of people will say, we're flexible. You can freeze your eggs. Is that really what society has to offer for women, that they're going to freeze our eggs and our children until we're old enough to be like, yeah, okay, now I'm ready to leave? That's insanity to me. You know, my young niece was like, oh, well, it's okay. She's getting, anyway, she was offered the ability to freeze her eggs. And I thought, wow, well, that's great if you want that. But then do you know that that's actually going to produce the same kind of child? I mean, do we actually know scientifically? If you take a frozen egg after a certain amount of years, how long can you wait? It's like the umbilical cord argument. How long is it a good stem cell? We don't really know. All of this science is new, and yet women are being used as the guinea pigs, when the real problem is not that we need to freeze our eggs, it's that we need to have children when we want to have children and continue working. You know what I mean? It's being reframed in a man's context, not a woman's context. That's my issue.
Yeah, that's why I said that they have to ask. They have to. Sorry, they have to learn to ask. I mean, they have the perception what we want, but it is totally different what we really want. I mean, if they do not give the chance to talk about it or ask us, and that we can articulate that, yeah, this is how we imagine, and it can be individual. I mean, there is no one tailor-made solution for this whole issue. I don't see. You have to look at from company to company how it can work, and it's an individual decision from each woman. I mean, you cannot say that it works for everyone. No, you have to find the solution, and it should be more alternative to choose by a woman, for example.
Yes, but I think it's actually by families. Go ahead, Dana. I don't think it's just a woman's choice. I think it's family's choice.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I actually just wanted to dial it back with, for me, I actually appreciate Women's Day. I realize, hey, that's probably like a gender thing. Why is there not a Man's Day? But I think this raises awareness. And I think awareness is the first step to eliminating that bias. And I think, as you've said, not everywhere in the world where it's a norm now that women can work. It's a norm now that women can go in engineering. I think there are still places in the world where the norm is different. And maybe they don't know any different because that's always been the way it is. And having this awareness and this consciousness that these are things that we can talk about and move forward as a society, I think this is where events like Women's Day is helpful. I think when I was starting my career, I don't think I've ever seen a celebration for Women's Day. And I remember so I had to start my life over after I immigrated. I'm also a person of color. So I kind of feel like I'm always alone in that room. Either I'm the only woman or I'm the only person of color, or both. So I kind of feel like I'm trying to speak much, much louder if I want to be seen. But I think events like this will encourage me. It would have given me a little bit more strength to speak out. It would have given me a little bit more courage to, move forward, because I can totally see my life kind of going sideways. It's easy to give up when you're facing a lot of these struggles. Well, I'm just gonna work in the place where people expect me to work because that's where they're gonna accept me. I might be able to move forward. It's harder to move into to go into a road where you don't know if it leads somewhere. It's almost like a dead end. And again, I think in that sense, I appreciate Women's Day, but maybe we're gonna get to a point where we don't need it anymore. And I think that's the ideal place to be.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
but
I want to add something as well. Always, I think the education of children is not only the woman's role, it's also the man's role. And you should not wait only for laws to change. And they should share really the responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not only the women's issue, and even for the education of the children, they need to grow up seeing both his parents involved in his education, because if only a woman who is going to take even though a woman would choose it, would choose to take the parental leave, and take the responsibility of taking care of the children, know that you are just replicating this culture and letting it there more and more. Sometimes women think, I won't be good enough as a mom, and she would feel guilty. And I talked to a lot of women about this. They would feel guilty. They have the feeling of guilt and the feeling of not being good enough, because they would share the parental leave with their husbands, or that she would allow herself to sleep a little bit and give the responsibility to her partner. I think this also here, I think we should all be involved in also not letting this culture of only women are responsible for kids replicating. They need to accept sometimes to relax and let men take the responsibility as well. you know they are grown up enough and mature enough to take the responsibility as women take. I think, really, maybe I don't have kids, I don't know how is this going, and I really congratulate all the women that went through that process and succeeded it. you know but I think even woman, when she got her first child, she will be confused about certain things, she will be learning. So as woman has the capacity
Definitely.
to learn to take care of this little human being that she didn't make alone, men can take also the initiative to learn as well, and to learn how to take care of this child. So they need to share things, so to not replicate this culture. It all started by culture, and if we don't um, stand against this myth of only women being able to take care of children, we need to just eliminate this culture of our head and this feeling of guilt of our head. Laws won't change anything. Even though law enable you to have a parental leave where you can decide either the father would take the responsibility or the mother. But if the culture don't change, those parental leave would remain maternity leave. It's only a changing in the name. So this is what I think. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's only a culture, I think. So yeah.
Like adding to your point, now things are changing as boys also live alone. They know how to manage. So when the both get married and live together, they share the responsibilities now because they understand. And I guess now both earn, then only a household could run. Just one person, and also it's a woman's choice to earn or not earn, to do job or not, because it's her parents that had educated her and brought her up. So if she wants to do something for her parents, it's completely her choice to do, either after marriage, after her baby, child, whatever she wants. So it's her own choice, because a boy can do for his parents. Why can't a girl do similarly for her parents who brought her up? But then it's changing. I know it will it will take time, but it's changing. But what do you all think when it's associated as the first lady president? The lady got promoted because she is a girl, she got promoted. You have some undue advantages, that's why you got promoted. You might have done something, that is the reason you are gaining or growing so faster in your career. Do you have encountered some terms like that in your career?
Absolutely. But I think that for young girls, there's never a knowledge of every single reason that something happens. Things don't happen in isolation. So there's always going to be some number of factors that lead to something. And if someone wants to say to you, well, it's only because you're a girl. Well, they use as an excuse for themselves that they can't accept it. But, no company is going to hire someone who can't do the job. That would just not be in their interest. And no person is going to take another person on in any format just because they're a girl. If they do, then they're very short-sighted. There's 50% of the population is girls. So I think that when people try and put other people down like this, or when they try and steal some of their fire, that it comes back to the sense of self. And I think that this applies to any human being. I don't think it's just a women's issue. Any human being, no matter what, you have something to offer to the world. There's something unique about you. And so when someone tries to take something away from you, there's this great expression that says, someone's opinion of you is none of your business. It's none of your business. What does it matter what they think? Mm-hmm. It's what you think of yourself. And so if you have statements like this, and I could give you examples that would just have your head spinning for bias and how it used to be. But you have to have that confidence in yourself and say, hey, I got this far for a reason. And you have to know those reasons. It's very important to tell yourself, okay, make an assessment. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not so good at. So you work on the things you're not so good at. And you do your best. And that's, if every human being did that, the world would be such a better place.
But adding to your point, there are still companies that come and recruit females just for their looks, so that their face value gets increased because they represent females over there in conference and meetings.
And
yes, but they used to do that with men too. They used to pick the tall men. They used to pick the men who had presence. So things haven't, biases and the ways that people select other people, it has to be kept in mind by women that it's not just us. There is bias in general. And this is why, especially on the data side, how do you separate our problems and biases and everything that we have as humans so that the data can be objective? This is why all of the necessities to understand and identify and classify these biases are necessary. Not because people are trying to say, oh, look at all this stuff that's used against me. No, it's because we have to understand ourselves as humans and how we affect the data before we can interpret the data.
And I think here also is the role of you as a recruited woman. For me, I think companies won't hire you as a data scientist if they are not sure that you will contribute, that Definitely. You will add value. But how would they, for example, use it? They would use it would use you as a tool of communication and just show your face to tell, look at us, we are tolerant towards women. Hey, government, look at us, we are recruiting women with such percentage. Here it's your role to take risks, to be self-confident, to believe in your contribution in this company, to push an idea if you believe in it, and also to be so paying attention about communication, And also, even we don't have that kind of perfect workplace, For me, the challenge is doubling because I am the kind of woman of color, it's just a double challenge, Here you need to know how, if you are seeing things that are not pleasing you, don't be silent, because your difference is your diversity or your difference, don't take it as a negative point or as a weakness, take it as a strength. I'm coming here to make this workplace looks richer and more. I'm adding value here. I'm adding a different value. I'm adding a different perspective, and this is so important. So here you need to talk. Whenever you find something that doesn't please you, don't be afraid to talk. For me, even if it's going to be, I'm going to pay this, I'm going to get out of this company, at least I would express myself. Expressing yourself is so important. Hey, you did this to me and I didn't like it. And also putting the words on the actions. I saw this reaction from you, and I think this is not convenient for our company culture. I think you should not do it. I think we should do this. You shouldn't do this. Like this, we don't just remain silent. We need to talk about it, even because it starts from a small gesture, and after that, it's going to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, enrich.
I
Thank
agree
you.
with you, Zina, but I also think that, again, everything is relative. And I'm thinking here very internationally. And if I think of a woman who is on her own, raising her children, maybe she doesn't have a husband, maybe she doesn't have a support structure, that woman's not going to have evidence to go and say, hey, you're messing with me, and this is not right, because she's going to lose her job, and that job pays for her children. So I think that more structures have to be in place that help women, and I think that women's groups and organizations that are there to support women, that everyone should be members of those. That you should try and network with other women, because there are women who are isolated. There are women who they can't simply just make a case and say this is wrong. Because yes, it's wrong, but they're not going to change it per se, and or they might just fire her. And you can say, well, then she has a case with the legal case. She can go and say, well, they fired me, but they don't fire you like, oh, I'm going to fire you because you said that. They have a performance review, and then they turn it around and say, oh, I see that you're not able to do this, and they give you more work, and then you can't handle the more work or the things that they've given you. It is not a simple thing. And I think that people need to appreciate that there are very many complexities to life and to what makes people stay silent, whether they're men or women. People stay silent from a fear-based factor. And while we should not have that fear, while people in general should not be afraid to share their mental health status or their gender or their beliefs or anything, the reality is such that people try and share, and then they get kicked down, and then they get silent. And that is the thing that needs to be fought. That the idea that you have to stand up for yourself, but stand up together, not alone, because it's very frightening to stand up alone. That's all.
You know what, Kim? I may maybe I agree on what you said on a certain things, but I don't agree when we're still talking about having a man protection. Yes, we.
But this isn't about a man's protection.
But we don't need that kind of man's protection. Maybe partner's protection, yeah, maybe partner's support. But I don't like really the word protection. And also, if you don't talk by yourself, so you would. There are maybe the advantage from back in time that we now have associations. We are more and more conscious about having laws that are protecting us. And here we need to have enough awareness to know how to protect ourselves. Also, we're having now everything, we have the traceability of our activities. Not like back in time. We have a lot of applications. When you see what you did day by day, you have the estimation of your tasks. And here, if he's going to say, your employer is going to say, oh, you are not productive enough or anything. I have these justifications. On that day I did this, on the other day I did this. Here it is, the estimation of activities, and here the traceability is so important. You estimated 2 days, I did it within 2 days. I needed to deliver on a certain time, I delivered on the right time. And also we have the weapon of social media, social networks. When we can talk, we can raise our voice loud, not raising like screaming, but we still can defend ourselves. Even though without being part of a community, we need to stand. This community is going to be there for 1 day, 2 days, but not for all your life.
I think the world needs to bottle. We need to bottle strength.
For me, I think that I can. I'm able to face. Really, I'm really able, and I believe in this. It's not only words. And I knew this after leaving my home country. Before, it was a myth for me to be able to work and study at the same time, having like 4 student jobs, and at the same time at a very difficult engineering school. And it was really a myth. And the last time I was talking with Richard, and I told him the fact that we are saying I am unable to do it, I need someone to come besides me. It's like the best analogy is Santa Claus for children. Santa, and children would be afraid. They won't wake up because of the monster, so they are not seeing the gift that their parents are hiding the gifts, and after that they know that Santa is a myth. For me, believing that you need someone to stand by you to succeed and continue in life and achieve what you want to achieve is just a myth. If you want to stand, start by standing to yourself. So I think if you want something, you can do it by yourself. It starts by you, and people would be inspired by you to stand by your side. Not just waiting for a community. Certainly, I'm not neglecting the efforts of a lot of associations out there, either professionally or even socially. I'm not neglecting their efforts. I'm not neglecting the enormous importance of communities. I'm not neglecting the group efforts. This is so mandatory, and this makes us stronger. But this doesn't tell us that when we stand up alone, we are not able. And this one of the problems of a lot that would remain silent, because they would say, I will be the only one that is talking. I will be the only one that is feeling. So maybe when I talk and I try to share my story and I try to do this procedure, maybe a lot of people out there, they would say, so I'm not the only one suffering from this. And like this, we form communities. So this is how I'm seeing things.
Yeah, Zina, I think not everyone is like you as Jeanne d'Arc type. I have to say, and I think the point
exactly
from Kim,
Jeanne of Arc, totally.
Jeanne d'Arc. The other thing, I think Kim was just wanted to make it clear that not everything is black and white. So there are a variety between situations, and you have to respect that how people are thinking and what fear they have. And even you are a kind of a facilitator, and you are the Jeanne d'Arc in front of them. You can really realize after a while that even everybody is telling you that and complaining that this is not good, that is not good, and everybody is on the same page. And then, as a Jeanne d'Arc, you go in front of them, and you want to fight and articulate this to the company. You really can recognize that if you turn around, maybe nobody is behind you when you are already in this fight. And that is why it is important to realize as well, I think, that what fight you are picking. And a lot of cases, you don't have to pick all the fights. Even your ethical standard or moral standard says that, I have to learn. And I know that also, if you are young, you are very enthusiastic, you have the power, but in 10, 15 years, you realize that you have other responsibilities, you have other obligations. You cannot just go alone and make this fight without considering what your families want to have, or what the family's interest is, for example, or in general, what is your interest. So you will realize that time by time, you are in a different life cycle, and then you consider different things, what is important, what is priority, and what's not. And I'm not underestimating that it is not important to fight and stand up and tell that this is not ethical. So this is about business ethics, for example, or you cannot treat people like that. I'm not questioning this one, but you have to consider so many factors, and that's why I'm saying it's not black and white. And it's not so easy that yes, I'm doing or not doing. And if somebody is not picking the fight, we cannot say that you know what, why are you here then? So it's you need also empathy to understand the other side, that why they are not doing. If you want to do, do it. I'm not saying that. I'm also going and fight for others as well, but I also experience that a lot of times I'm left alone. Even 20 others are saying the same, but they don't want to do anything about it. I mean, they are so much disconnected, and they are not attached to this whole thing. It is not so important that they don't want to have kind of a change, and that's why you have to adopt. Okay, what is the best way? It is, how can I solve it? Is it a technical solution for the change, or do I have to have an adaptive change, for example? And if you make the adaptive choice, you have to see that the readiness and the ripeness of the people and the company. Otherwise, you will not change. Even you have the power, you can even empower the people. If the company is not ready, or people are not ready, not right, mature enough, it will be a failure. So you have to be tactical, strategic, what to do in a certain situation.
You know what? I'm not underestimating people's sensations and people's different responsibilities, and that they have families to feed. But for me, I'm talking about myself, from my own perspective, even though I'm not going to change this company's culture, at least I won't regret it 10 years later, and I'm still facing the same problems and suffering each and every day from them. For me, I think maybe it depends on the life that we've gone through. But for me, during my daily life, I just learned, if I didn't stand for myself, if I didn't think about myself, nothing is gonna do it in my place for me. Maybe for other people, things are getting I've never get anything in my life for granted. I've never got it things like this. I needed to fight. I needed to do things. I needed to interact in order to be where I am right now. And I think if this culture is not changing, this is not the right place for me. Stop. Point. And also for my family, I care a lot for my family. And maybe if I am going to have children other day, I care a lot for them. And I will be afraid to not afford for them things that other parents would afford. But I think if my children love me, they would love that I will be happy. And they would, I think, for me as a child, I would be so proud to see my mom like fighting just because she didn't like it, and she chose what would make her happy, and at least she would have tried to change things. It's okay to not have
I think
Christmas
Zaina,
gifts or
you're
anything,
so right.
but for me, we should at least try. Either we get with a learning, and at least we know this culture is not changing, I need to change to another workplace, or maybe things are going to change. Maybe I am going to raise awareness around something, around the subject. People are able to change. We the good thing about us, that we always have improvement areas, and if people around us won't tell us about them, maybe we don't know. Maybe they don't know that these things are these employees are not feeling well, or this colleague is behaving in a certain way. So we should try. For me, trying is just a blessing, and we need to take it as an advantage, not as a risk. So yeah, it's for
Zaina,
me.
I totally agree with you. I think that everyone needs to be so inspired by your power, like literally, like I say this in the best way, because, what you're saying is believe in yourself and empower yourself and justify everything you do to yourself, which is great. Like all of that is so awesome. And I think that for women, for men, for everyone to understand that it does start with you is so important. Like you're spot on, that you have to think about what you want for yourself. You have to, no matter whether you're in a relationship, in a family, in a business, in a situation that's social, you have to think of yourself first, because it's like the old the airliner thing. You have to put the gas mask on yourself first to be able to help anybody else. Because if you're not good with yourself, you're not good to anybody else. So in that sense, I think that you're spot on, and I think it's great that you're saying this, because a lot of people would benefit from hearing it. And I think that Magdy's point is also very true, that life is complex. It changes. It's, there's just like data, there's lots of hidden layers. You have to go through the algorithm of life and figure out how you're going to weigh things. And
you even have
it's what we do.
dirty data. You even have dirty
After
data
all, it's choice.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
After all,
Exactly.
after all, it's a choice. It's a choice. Either you
Yeah.
take it or not.
But like now I have to add, there are some
Yeah.
questions from the viewers as well, so they want to get it answered. So the first
Tell
one,
us.
I would like Donna Bill to take it. By Kate. If it was Men's Day, not Women's Day, what are you ladies going to ask Tom and Greg? Donna Bill, you have to take this question.
Coquilla.
I don't know. Does it have to be a serious question? If they were shopping, where would they go? What would they do? Where would they spend hours on? I'd be just curious to know. I've seen the video of Tom waiting for the book, so I'm kind of curious to see a different side of both of them, because I always see them like they're also very, very nurturing and very kind in our integrated mentoring sessions, and I really applaud them for that. But I also kind of want to see, well, what are the quirkiness of Tom Ives and Greg Coquillo?
Okay, next question we have is, do you think that there should be some centralized system or organization for taking these issues, because countries are very competitive and they don't align on even a lot of social issues together? So for it was related to the thing you were telling about the men's and the women's getting 3 years leave and all of that. So yeah.
I mean, sadly, that's government and community, isn't it? That's what each and every person has to go to their organizations and to their communities and to their businesses. It's really a question of your village, your community, your government, and making changes that apply to everyone.
Anybody else would like to add to it?
Yeah, I think that's why societies are so complex, and that's why culture exists from group to group, organizations to organizations, because we have to have consensus of what works best for that place, for the people in that place. So I think applying something that is universal might be unfair. So that's just that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, this is a fun question. What women want? Ask Mel Gibson.
Women want what men want.
Everything.
In fact, women and men want the same thing. They want to be happy. They want success. They want to do what they really love to do. I think it's really not that different what women want, what women cherish than men. There is no different, but maybe the challenges are different to get to what they want to achieve is different. And here maybe women would need men to see those challenges and applaud her for getting through more challenges than him just to get to the same point. But after all, if it is a general question, women and men want the same thing. They want to improve themselves. They want to live happily. They want to get where they want to be. Simple.
Okay. So the next question I have is, I always wonder why everyone is not treated as a human being. Why the society see women different way. A good human being followed righteous attitude and concise treating everyone. Where did it went? A good human being following righteous attitude and concise, treating everyone as equal and respect their importance in their life and being grateful to every person irrespective of gender is the need of the hour. What are
Vivek, I
your thoughts?
completely agree. I completely agree.
I
But
completely agree as
unfortunately,
well.
yeah, I mean, in my ideal world, we would not just treat each other better and really understand that everyone has a fundamental need for the same kinds of happiness, for the same kinds of success, for the same kinds of self-efficacy, but also for the world. I mean, in my mind, we could do a lot better treating our economy and our ecology and our environment. I mean, there's so many things. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's so many ways that we can improve things for people. And yet, because we are so driven by certain aspects of life, whether it's success or perception, we're losing the balance of things. And I think that, one of the great having a Women's Day is that when you bring in the perspective of people who care for others, people who are part of the society that have taken on an enormous part. We're part of nature, much more in a way than men, because we're tied to it in a way that men aren't. We give birth to things. We have all of these parts of our bodies that are in sync with what's going on in the environment. And so I think that, going back to that question of what would you ask Tom and Greg, I would say, what do you think the difference is between men and women? What do you really think is the difference? Because I honestly think that when you ask questions, one of the things, there was a book called the Fifth Column or Fifth Discipline, the Fifth Discipline. And it was all about how you can get to understanding the hidden ideas and mental constraints that other people have by asking questions like, hey, if we were to do this, what would you say? And the thing that's amazing is all of the different responses that come out. People don't share what goes on in their minds all the time. And I think that part of the things that all of what's going on with data is going to help us do is identify how we think, because we don't actually communicate very well in general, regardless of your language, but people hold a lot inside. And I feel that, these conversations that happen because you assign a day, because you assign, affirmative action, because they realize that there is bias in the world. The way that we learn about these biases and we adjust to these biases and we discuss them is what defines that change, is what makes it so that these kinds of conversations are history, like Generation X. We get to realize that there's a process that happens, and that learning process makes change, and that change improves things. I mean, when I hear Zaina and I hear how strong she is and how confident and how she's just like, no, don't even, like, no, just it's equal, everything's equal. I love that. I think that's fantastic, and it tells me that every single person who's worked before towards these goals has been successful, and they have something that they can be proud of because they did take those steps, they did take those actions, and they did go through whatever they went through. And it's important for people in the world to realize that humans, to err is human. We have problems, we have viewpoints, we have ways of seeing that are biased, that are not helpful to growth, and that are in the end self-defeating as a society. And if we can identify these biases, if we can actually learn from our own exercises in data mining and learning about how people react, sentient analysis, all these different things, we can go, wow, look at us. Do we really act that way? Do we really do that? Do we really have those biases? And once you identify the problem, then you can fix it. Then you can figure out the best way to fix it. And I think that the greatest thing about the internet, I mean, we come from that generation that actually did not have the internet when I was young. I remember 1993 when it was when it first came into existence.
Even the Generation Z have a lot of problems that other generations didn't suffer from.
Totally.
For example, nowadays they are since women are getting more and more responsible and people are getting more and more used to women to doing everything perfectly, we are suffering from a lot of problems. For example, being judgmental, being always judged, show us what you can do, having always that pressure. Okay, you're doing enough, you're doing good, you're seeing yourself doing good enough, show us what you can do.
Yeah,
How
but
did
you
you
know,
get through that? You
that's
know,
fair.
It's your business.
They've been saying that to
this
men
is
for
and and
generations.
and also, even though now I'm seeing pressure getting more and more on women, like even talking, and this has nothing to do with, for example, a professional thing, but let's talk about body shaming, for example. People are getting more because of internet and social media and everything. Everyone is going judgmental and getting this kind of shaming, skills shaming in companies, things that we don't talk about because
but
those are things that we can't talk about, but they exist.
Yeah, no,
but I
You
think
it's
know,
true.
part of the discussion, I think part of the discussion with bias and equality, we also have to talk about diversity. And I think we also have to normalize different definitions, for example, of success. And because
Yeah.
right now that's what's happening with body shaming, because we have this one ideal definition of what the ideal body is, or whatever that might be. And
yeah.
the same way with success. So when we say, okay, we want the same kind of success as men, our definition of success could be different from that. And I think we should normalize that it's okay. Like, people can have choices. My definition of success might be different from somebody else's definition of success. And we should be celebrating the differences in how we define those things. We can't have this like
Mhm.
one norm of you're successful if you're a VP, you're a president, or you're a CEO, because it could be very different for different people. So
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
just
I,
wanted to
I
add
agree.
that.
I think it has to be based on general accepted laws. You know, like Gaith is raising a very good point in the chat. He's saying, you know, if we fix all of our biases, we'll be robots. And I think it's understood that every single human being has an internal thought process. We have our own self-talk. We have what we say inside our brains based on our culture, our upbringing, all of the different factors. But that if we are to create systems in society for work, for people analytics, for, you know, how somebody's healthcare is addressed and how all these things are managed, you do have to remove those biases. I think programs have to remove bias. People will always have bias. And it's just important that they understand what is acceptable and not acceptable forms of behavior, what is acceptable of how you use whatever thoughts you have in your mind. You know, because let's face it, everyone is going to have their own different thoughts. And per your remark there, Donabelle, it's true that everyone has their own definition of success, but that takes time to develop. I think that sadly, you know, when people are young, especially, that definition of success, they look to society for that definition of success. And when people are young, when they're teens and tweens, they look to their devices for success. They look to TikTok, they look to Snapchat, they look to the social media and say like, oh, look how many hits this person's getting. This person must be very popular. I like the way this person looks, this person sounds. But again, this goes back to education. You know, people have to, it's life is more complicated now. Let's face it. You know, when I was a little kid, it was very simple. It was like, you know, good and bad were very clear cut, and you know, you had television, and don't spend too much time in front of the television. You know, and now it's like,
Yeah.
don't spend too much time in front of the device, and don't, you know, try and balance your life out. And I think that the more conversations that people have about these kinds of issues, the more that we can inform the next generation. I do think that Generation Z are really suffering from everything because they're the first generation to grow up entirely on social media. I mean, literally, and they don't have perspective. And when you don't have perspective of what came before, you don't know anything else. And they're having the highest levels of anxiety and depression. And they, you know, there's not enough outside of social media to change this. And COVID has only highlighted this. It's made it so much worse because they can't get out and be with their friends and be different and be mismatched and be unique and be who they are, because everyone is just forced back inside. And I honestly, I worry about that entire generation, because I feel that they need each other more than anything, and yet they don't have these constructs and barriers and structures of how to think about how they're communicating with people online, and have the knowledge that, online stays online. It's there forever. These kinds of things are ways that we as a society have to grow and change and adapt and think about, okay, so what's really happening here? I think there's a lot of potential for data science to help in that regard, because if we have both, I think also there needs to be AI law based on ethics, on what you can and cannot use, and what remains private and what does not remain private. I think that there's way too much power right now that's being exercised over young people that really needs guidance from businesses. You have to have some kind of ethics applied to what you are pushing to a 12-year-old. It's just, they could say, well, the child shouldn't have a device. That's not practical. Kids have devices because their parents want to know where they are. So it's a very different world. And all of these things have to be balanced in that world. And as a young woman looking at these images and thinking that this is the way, that's not new. It's just everywhere. It's magnified. And so there's this greater reaction to it because there's a greater presence of it. Now you look around. I live in New York City. There was a fact that came out in a magazine that I see indirectly 66,000 advertisements a day, just walking around. And it's an overload. There was a book written in the 60s called Future Shock, that psychologically speaking, we're not programmed to deal with all of this content and all of this processing going on. And there's going to be a sort of shock to the system of how we integrate it, how we understand it, how we learn from it. And we are a process in the becoming right now. So I think being mindful, being aware of everything that's happening, having these different perspectives and being able to voice them in the way that we are, Manpreet, thank you very much, is very informative for other people to then pick up and say, okay, what do you think about this? Let's talk about this. I think it's a great opportunity.
I think Raif asked another question. He said, if we fix our biases, we'll be robots. In fact,
that's what I responded to.
Yeah, these biases that are affecting human beings' lives and that are hurting them and doing bad things to them, maybe you are not going to be robots. It's totally the opposite. We are going to be more and more human because we are taking care of others and trying to raise our consciousness. But we have to behave it. Always differentiate between personal biases and hurting or giving judge to others. We are free to be biased. In fact, you are not free to be biased. You are not free to hurt others. I really love you, right? But I know that you are trying to just bring ideas that people always tell. We are not free to do harm to others just because they have a certain gender, or they have a certain color, or they have a certain ethnicity. In fact,
Zaina, I think you are misunderstanding. I think you're misunderstanding Guy. I don't think he's saying that. He's simply saying that.
No, we are free to be armed, but keep inside us. Keep inside us how? I couldn't understand.
Well, because that's what I was saying before. Yeah.
It was an complete question.
Yeah.
It's but keep inside us. For me, I think if we fix biases, we are going to be more human. That's all.
I agree with that. Yes.
I think it's not a question of deciding or not. Things are evaluating and things are changing. And women from a long time have already proven that this was just a myth, and that they are able to do as much good as men. Now it's not the discussion how to raise consciousness, how would we contribute. And also I would remind, if woman is not happy, men won't be happy. If woman is not living her life freely and just doing what she wants to do, men won't be happy, because we are living in the same society. you know? And as happiness is contagious, frustration and sadness are contagious as well. You know, emotions are biased, ladies. You know, men as much emotional as women. And I take my father, for example, as an example.
Zaina,
He's
he's
more
winding you up.
emotional than me. I know. So you cannot eliminate that. For example, for me, in fact, in fact, you know, it's not
He's
about
speak.
emotional. It's not about being emotional. It's about bringing it today and talking about it. Really,
I'll tell you,
I
Zaina.
think we should
I'll tell you here.
take out this myths.
You
Really,
know what?
really, come on.
It's always no. It's always that a lady
But
is
I
taught
know,
to be
right? I
emotional.
know.
She can express, but a guy is always told to hide his emotion because he's a guy, he can't cry, and that's why they are more mentally stressed than us sometimes, because they keep inside. We as humans and mothers
No,
sometimes vent out our tears, but
it's
sometimes
about
guys don't do
education.
this.
Know what? Maybe
You know,
I think I need just to add a point about this, and but you know, maybe this bias for us, um, working, being financially independent, we are able to do what we choose to do. Either we can, if we choose to study, we can study. If we choose to live alone, we can live alone. If we choose to work, we can work. If we choose to negotiate a salary, we can negotiate it. If we choose to just switch from one day to another domain, we can do it. If we choose to travel, we can travel. If we choose to drive, we can drive. If we choose to contribute to elections, we can do it. There are women over there that is suffering from them. You know, that is a kind of, they are seeing those rights as luxury, as things that they see only on television. There are women out there that are suffering from not being even able to drive or not being able to get education, that their brothers are getting prioritized to go to school more than them, or just they are just obliged to stay at home. Why? To take care of their children so that their husband can have the time to evaluate in his professional career. You know, for us, maybe it's a choice, but there are. Let's not neglect that countries all over the world and continents all over the world have different challenges. So,
ignore
okay,
it.
okay, wait. So for me, I think that these challenges are remaining, and let's. And he told me, Zaina, wait, are we going to read this? Zaina, you are based
Oh
towards your
no,
ideas.
no,
You
don't
know,
read
for
it, don't read
example,
We
it.
can't.
I spend
No,
time with my kids more than my wife.
we
It's
continue
really
on
your choice.
Saturday. Let's
It's
continue
re-
on Saturday.
Yes,
it's
let's make
really
it a
your
fun
Yeah,
choice.
Saturday
Zaina,
game.
after
Babe's
party
trying to
will
steal
Yeah.
continue.
attention from the women.
Wait, I I
But
know. I spend time with my kids more than my wife. It's your choice. If it really pleases you to spend more time with your children than your wife, it's really your decision, you know. I can't negotiate your family problems or your family priorities here. It's not the discussion today, right? Really. But
Okay,
thank
wait,
you
let's
for
let
enriching this discussion.
let's bring this back to something that was actually very great that you said, which I think is important to talk about on Women's Day and talk about ways that it can change. The idea that, and it's not even an idea, the reality that so many women don't have access to the same rights as men and the same opportunities as men. I think that one of the biggest things that people can do to actually change that is to help promote getting access to the internet for everyone all over the world. I mean, if you
yeah,
really want to find a way to change things that's going to make a difference for people who don't have any money, it's the internet. And you know, the amazing opportunity right now in terms of classes and education online, especially after COVID, we see how much people can actually achieve from being online. This, I'm hoping, is going to be a watershed for opportunities to really help push
yeah,
content and education to people who never had access to it, who didn't have, there are still people who have to walk a mile to get water. There are still people who don't have electricity. There are still people that, for them, this is surreal. The entire thing that we're doing right now doesn't even exist in their world. And to really make changes for the rest of the world, people who have the ability to have to push governments, get that development there, get the power there, get to the power to the people. There was a fantastic conversation on the women in data science, where they were talking about Pakistan and how, they realized that like 83% of their energy was getting wasted. This is amazing, to be able to pull the data together and show, look, we have this energy. It's not a supply problem. It's how we're executing that supply, how we're getting it to the people or not getting it to the people. And if we, instead of being so self-centered and thinking about ourselves in terms of what can we change to change my day, if we think of what can we do to change the world so that everyone has an opportunity, that more together actually happens in reality. And the fact that there are these people who don't even have the opportunity, give them the opportunity. People are amazing. Given there was a post that was on LinkedIn about a little girl who wanted to run, and she didn't have any shoes, so they taped her feet, and she won the contest, and she won the next award, and she finally got those shoes. But if we don't give people who have that inspiration the ability, if we don't give them the access to things, that's criminal. That's stopping life. That's stopping progress. And so, when we talk about Women's Day, let's think about all those women who have children who aren't in a situation where they can do what we can do, because we have the ability to not only act as role models, but to try and navigate changes that will help everyone. And I personally think that that's something, anybody who's in a situation where they can do that, they should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, adding to your point, Kim, then you were saying that children have easily access to internet and they have a lot of things they can explore irrespective. Like, my brother is a lawyer who is an aspiring lawyer. He told me that even on YouTube Kids, you'll get those ads that are not allowed to be on kids. And that's how we as a data scientist have to look how it's being accessed and how we can make it a healthier thing for all the upcoming generation to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was a good show to have you all here, and maybe we'll have a part 2 of it soon in a coming month. So thank you for joining me today, and thank you everyone for listening us. And yeah, until then, we meet next time. Bye, and please like, share, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube and Donna Plus channel on YouTube. And you can join us on Integrated ML/AI mentoring sessions every Saturday 9:30 p.m. IST and other time zones. Please free to adjust yourself. Thank you.